The Dead Sea is surrounded by caves, climbed into the cave, and what did they find?
In these scrolls, we find biblical manuscripts.
Hidden beneath layers of earth and time, ancient artifacts emerged that challenge everything we thought we knew about biblical history. These discoveries blur the line between faith and archaeology. Could these mysterious objects actually be physical proof of the stories we've read about for thousands of years? What secrets do they hold? And why do they appear in places where they shouldn't exist according to conventional history? Join us as we explore 7 of the most puzzling biblical artifacts that have left experts scratching their heads and believers questioning what's really possible. The Ark in the Mountain. High in the mountains of eastern Turkey, something extraordinary sits frozen in time. At 6,500 feet above sea level, where no ancient ship should ever be found, lies a massive boat-shaped formation that has sparked one of history's most heated debates.
The captain is surprised to see what appears to be the remains of a large ship, far inland.
The Durupanar formation, as scientists call it, stretches exactly 538 feet in length. That's almost precisely the same size as Noah's Ark described in the book of Genesis. When a Turkish Air Force pilot first photographed it in 1959, the aerial view was unmistakable, a perfect boat outline carved into the mountainside, as if some massive vessel had been pressed into the earth itself. For decades, people dismissed it as just another geological oddity. Rock formations can take strange shapes, after all. But then, the evidence started piling up in ways that made even the skeptics pause. In 2023, Turkish researchers made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. Deep inside the formation, they found traces of organic material, possibly ancient timber that had somehow survived thousands of years.
And then just last year we did soil testing on the site, and we found out that it has almost 3 times as much organic matter.
Ground-penetrating radar scans revealed something even more intriguing: geometric patterns beneath the surface that looked remarkably like the internal structure of a massive ship. The patterns showed what appeared to be bulkheads and storage compartments, exactly what you'd expect to find inside a vessel designed to carry thousands of animals and their supplies. But perhaps the strangest clue appears every autumn. The grass growing inside the boat-shaped outline turns yellow weeks before the grass outside it. Scientists believe this happens because hidden cavities beneath the surface trap cold air, creating a microclimate that stops the growing season early. It's as if the ghost of an ancient hull is still affecting the world above it. Carbon dating of materials found in the area shows human activity between 5,500 and 3,000 BC. This is exactly the time frame when ancient flood stories from cultures around the world place their great deluges. Soil cores from 2025 revealed tiny seashell fragments and layers of marine clay, suggesting this mountain ridge was once underwater. The impossible tunnel. Beneath the ancient streets of Jerusalem lies something that shouldn't exist, a tunnel so precisely engineered that modern experts struggle to understand how it was built. The Siloam tunnel, carved through solid limestone nearly 2,700 years ago, represents one of archaeology's greatest puzzles. The tunnel twists and turns for 5 yards through bedrock, connecting the Gihon Spring to the pool of Siloam. What makes it impossible is this: 2 teams of workers started digging from opposite ends, working blindly toward each other through layers of hard stone. They had no surveying equipment, no way to communicate underground, and no sight lines to guide them. Yet, somehow, they met in the middle. Their convergence was off by only a few feet, a margin of error that would impress engineers today, even with laser guidance systems. The tunnel's purpose was clear enough. King Hezekiah ordered its construction around 700 BC as the Assyrian army approached Jerusalem. By diverting the city's water supply underground, the people could survive even under siege.
Away from its vulnerable water source slightly outside the walls to a reservoir inside, because the Assyrians were coming and you weren't going to be able to stop them.
The Bible mentions this tunnel in the books of Kings and Chronicles, calling it a conduit built at the king's command. But how did ancient workers achieve such precision? The tunnel maintains a perfect 0.06% gradient from end to end, which allows water to flow steadily downhill. Modern engineers, armed with satellites and computers, have struggled to match such accuracy when digging through solid rock. Inside the tunnel, archaeologists discovered the Siloam inscription, a weathered Hebrew text carved into the wall. It records the exact moment when the two digging crews finally heard each other through the rock and broke through. The inscription reads like a celebration, describing how the workers' pickaxes met and water began to flow. Recent scientific analysis confirmed what biblical scholars had long suspected. Radiocarbon dating of plant fibers and uranium-thorium testing of mineral deposits inside the tunnel placed its construction squarely in Hezekiah's reign, around 700 BC. For the first time, laboratory data had confirmed a specific biblical infrastructure project. Today, visitors can still walk through the tunnel, wading through thigh-deep water as it murmurs beneath Jerusalem's streets. The same water that saved the ancient city still flows, carrying with it the memory of an engineering miracle that shouldn't have been possible. In 2022, Israeli scholars announced that high-resolution photographs revealed additional lines on the Siloam inscription, suggesting we may have missed part of the story.
This is the original plaque of the Siloam inscription that you've heard so much about, where the workers were so proud, even under the duress.
The tunnel that once seemed fully understood continues to hold secrets. But this ancient tunnel wasn't the only treasure hidden beneath Jerusalem's streets. A biblical treasure map. In 1952, deep inside Cave 3 at Qumran, archaeologists made a discovery that would haunt treasure hunters for decades. Among the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, they found something completely different, a 7-foot cylinder made of copper and tin that had been deliberately hidden away. Unlike the fragile parchment scrolls around it, this copper scroll was built to last. When researchers finally managed to cut it open using dental drills and miniature saws, they found themselves staring at what appeared to be a billion-dollar treasure map. The scroll contained 64 precise locations where enormous amounts of gold and silver had been hidden. The total haul described in the scroll could amount to between 60 and 170 metric tons of precious metals, worth several $billion at today's prices. But the real value might be immeasurable. These are sacred objects from the Second Temple in Jerusalem. The hiding places read like riddles. The scroll mentions treasures buried in cisterns, tombs, dry riverbeds, and underground chambers.
Very, very big numbers. But after all, if you can have the earliest text of Genesis that exists.
Some entries end with cryptic Greek letters that no one has been able to decode. Are they coordinates, the initials of those who hid the treasure, or something else entirely? Many scholars believe this treasure was rushed out of Jerusalem's Second Temple just before the Romans destroyed it in 70 AD. As the siege tightened, temple officials may have scattered the most sacred objects to prevent them from falling into enemy hands. The copper scroll might be their insurance policy, a permanent record of where everything was hidden. But here's the mystery. Despite numerous expeditions and decades of searching, no one has ever found any of these treasures. Not a single coin, not one golden vessel, nothing. Either the scroll remains heavily coded and its true meaning hasn't been cracked, or someone got there first. Recent multispectral scans in 2025 suggested the scroll might be decades younger than originally thought, reopening questions about whose treasure it describes and whether any of it still exists. A carving that could change history. In October 2002, a small limestone box appeared on the antiquities market that would send shockwaves through the world of biblical archaeology. Carved into its side in faint Aramaic letters were 6 words that could rewrite Christian history: James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. The ossuary itself was typical of 1st century Jewish burial customs, a simple, unadorned bone box used to store the remains of the deceased after their flesh had decomposed. Thousands of similar boxes have been found throughout ancient Palestine, but this one was different. If authentic, it would be the first physical evidence of Jesus' family ever discovered. The box belonged to Israeli antiquities collector Oded Golan, who claimed he had purchased it legally in the 1970s. For decades, it had sat quietly in his Tel Aviv apartment, its revolutionary inscription unnoticed. That changed when French epigrapher André Lemaire visited Golan's collection in 2002 and recognized the significance of the carving. The implications were staggering. The New Testament mentions Jesus' brothers several times, and early Christian writings identified James as the leader of the Jerusalem church after Jesus' death. If the ossuary was genuine, it would be the most significant physical link to Jesus ever found, a tangible connection to the man who changed the world. But the discovery quickly became controversial. The Israel Antiquities Authority accused Golan of orchestrating an elaborate fraud. According to their experts, while the ossuary itself was ancient, the crucial part of the inscription had been added in modern times to inflate its value. They pointed to subtle differences in the carving style, suggesting the inscription had been created by two different hands at different times. Golan fought back, insisting the ossuary was genuine. His defense relied on scientific evidence. Microscopic fossils and chemical patina inside the grooves of the inscription appeared to match the rest of the box. If someone had forged the inscription, they would have had to fake these microscopic details with extraordinary skill. The legal battle stretched for nearly 8 years. Expert witnesses testified about everything from ancient Aramaic grammar to the chemistry of limestone patina. The case became a clash between faith and science, tradition and skepticism. On March 14, 2012, the Jerusalem District Court delivered its verdict. Oded Golan was acquitted of all forgery charges. The court fined him only for dealing in antiquities without a license. But the acquittal didn't settle the scientific debate. The judge made it clear that while the prosecution had failed to prove forgery beyond a reasonable doubt, that didn't mean the ossuary was definitely authentic. Today, scholars remain divided. Some see the James ossuary as the most important archaeological discovery in Christian history. Others dismiss it as a clever fake, so sophisticated that modern science has yet to definitively expose it. The debate continues, with new studies and analyses adding layers to the mystery rather than resolving it. The Pillow of Heaven. In Edinburgh Castle, behind bulletproof glass, sits a 335-pound block of reddish sandstone that has witnessed more than 1,000 years of royal ceremonies. Known as the Stone of Destiny, or the Stone of Scone, this humble rock carries one of the most improbable claims in biblical archaeology, that it once served as Jacob's pillow in the wilderness. The Bible tells us that Jacob, grandson of Abraham and father of the 12 tribes of Israel, used a stone for a pillow during his famous dream. In that dream, he saw a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, with angels climbing up and down. When he woke, Jacob anointed the stone with oil and called the place Bethel, meaning house of God. According to medieval legends, this very stone somehow made its way from the Middle East to Scotland, where it became the centerpiece of royal coronations. For roughly a millennium, Scottish kings were crowned upon it, and after 1296, when King Edward III carried it off to London, it became part of English and British coronation ceremonies. The stone's journey to Scotland is shrouded in mystery and legend. Some stories tell of Scota, a mythical Egyptian princess, bringing it westward. Others claim the prophet Jeremiah carried it to Ireland as part of a divine mission to preserve the royal line of David. A popular Scottish tale even suggests that clever monks substituted a local replica before Edward's soldiers arrived, keeping the real stone hidden. But science tells a different story. Geological analysis by the British Geological Survey shows the stone is made of red sandstone that matches perfectly with rock formations around Scone in central Scotland. Its mineralogy and sedimentary structures are completely consistent with local stone, not the limestone you'd expect from the Holy Land. D-scans reveal chisel marks from several medieval stonemasons, further undermining any claim to ancient Middle Eastern origin. The stone appears to have been quarried and worked in Scotland, probably sometime between the 9th and 11th centuries. Yet the legend persists. Despite scientific evidence pointing to a Scottish origin, the stone's spiritual significance remains unshaken. It featured in almost every British coronation from Edward II in 1308 to Charles III in 2023, save for brief periods when it was returned to Scotland or stolen by student nationalists. Sometimes, however, The most mysterious artifacts are those that appear to confirm biblical events in places where they shouldn't exist. The Ark of the Covenant. Among all the artifacts mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, none captures the imagination quite like the Ark of the Covenant. This golden chest, built according to God's exact specifications and containing the original tablets of the Ten Commandments, represents the physical presence of the divine on earth. According to biblical accounts, God commanded Moses to instruct the Israelites to build the ark from acacia wood covered in gold. The chest was to be topped with golden cherubim and carried by poles inserted through golden rings. Inside, along with the stone tablets inscribed with the Ten Commandments, were Aaron's rod and a jar of manna from the wilderness. The ark served as the centerpiece of Jewish worship for centuries. It was housed in the Holy of Holies within Solomon's temple, the most sacred space in Judaism. Only the high priest could approach it, and only on the Day of Atonement. The ark was said to possess tremendous power, capable of striking down those who touched it improperly and leading the Israelites to victory in battle. Everything changed in 587 BC when the Babylonians conquered Jerusalem and destroyed Solomon's temple. The ark's fate remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Some accounts suggest it was hidden before the Babylonian army reached the temple. One legend claims it was concealed in a cave beneath the Temple Mount, where it remained sealed until the coming of the Messiah. Another persistent legend places the ark in Ethiopia, specifically in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum. According to Ethiopian tradition, the Queen of Sheba brought the ark to Ethiopia after visiting Solomon. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church claims to be the ark's guardians, though they allow no one to see it except for a single designated priest. During World War II, scholar Edward Ollendorf claimed he was permitted to view the object kept in the Ethiopian church. His conclusion was disappointing. Whatever was stored there was not the original biblical ark. This assessment has done little to diminish Ethiopian claims, and the supposed ark remains under constant guard. The ark's disappearance has inspired countless theories and expeditions. Some researchers believe it was taken to Rome by the Romans, who destroyed the Second Temple in 70 AD. Others suggest it was hidden in caves near Qumran, along with the Dead Sea Scrolls. A few even claim it was transported to Europe by the Knights Templar during the Crusades. Despite centuries of searching, the Ark of the Covenant remains lost. If it still exists, it represents not just a priceless artifact, but a direct link to the divine presence described in Scripture, an actual piece of the true cross. Throughout the Christian world, hundreds of wooden fragments are claimed to be pieces of the cross on which Jesus was crucified. These relics, known as pieces of the true cross, have been venerated for centuries and continue to draw pilgrims and believers from around the world. The popularity of cross relics began in the early centuries of Christianity and reached its peak during the Middle Ages. Churches throughout Europe claimed to possess fragments of the true cross, often displayed in elaborate reliquaries and credited with miraculous powers. The 16th century theologian John Calvin famously observed that if all the supposed pieces of the true cross were gathered together, they would fill the cargo hold of an entire ship. The problem with authenticating these relics is both practical and scientific. Even if the cross had been preserved after Jesus' crucifixion, wooden artifacts from the 1st century rarely survive to the present day. Wood decomposes relatively quickly, especially in the Mediterranean climate of ancient Palestine. After nearly 2,000 years, any original wood would likely have rotted away completely. Archaeological excavations occasionally turn up wooden fragments claimed to be from the true cross. In 2013, researchers in Turkey discovered wood fragments they initially thought might be connected to early Christian traditions. However, dating these pieces and connecting them to specific historical events remains extremely challenging. The trade in religious relics continues today, with supposed pieces of the true cross available for purchase online. In 2017, investigators found several such relics for sale on eBay, priced around $500 each. The sellers claimed these fragments had been authenticated by various religious authorities. Though independent verification was lacking, the scientific challenges of authenticating cross relics are substantial. Even if a piece of 1st century wood were discovered, Proving it came from the specific cross used in Jesus' crucifixion would be impossible. There's no way to establish a chain of custody stretching back 2,000 years, and no scientific test can identify wood that was used for a particular historical event. Modern forensic techniques can determine the age and origin of wooden artifacts, but they cannot prove specific historical connections. Carbon dating can establish when a tree was cut down, but it cannot reveal what the wood was used for, or whether it was present at a particular crucifixion. These 7 mysterious artifacts remind us that the past is never truly past. It continues to emerge from the earth, challenging our assumptions and rewriting our understanding of history. Whether these objects are genuine biblical relics or elaborate forgeries, they reveal something profound about humanity's need to connect with the sacred stories that shaped our world. What do you think about these mysterious artifacts? Are they proof of biblical truth or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments below.